around Australia are having strange and unexplainable encounters. Join BFM's Cosmic Girl and Sifu each Friday night at 10 p.m. as they explore the fascinating world of paranormal and tales of strange encounters. Extraterrestrials, ghosts, monsters, myths and magic. BFM 10 p.m. Fridays, the heart and soul of the Bay. Oh, and the spirit along the Redlands coast and beyond.
So welcome to another jam-packed episode of Strange Encounters on 100.3 Bay FM, the heart, the soul,
and spirit of the Bay.
And spirit of the Bay. Psychomanteums.
Yes, Psychomanteums.
Yeah, Psychomanteums. So
Yes.
what is that about?
Well, Psychomanteums are a tool, I guess, for contacting the dead. They're not new. They actually originated out of ancient Greece, and in those days they were called necromantians.
Ooh.
Necromantians. And so what they involved were people making a pilgrimage across the land to various temples in ancient Greece, and going into these long, dark, twisty hallways in these temples, going down into them, and as they did, they would be dimly lit. They would have these strange, sort of a little bit scary faces on the side of the walls, and they go down the hall, and they get to the very end, and the last part of the hallway, the floor would be like a little pool, so there'd be a reflective surface. And so what they would do is that they'd have people, they go there with their questions where they want to contact the dead, right? And they want to get information from the deceased ancestors. And sometimes there was a little bit of trickery involved by the people who were in the temple, who ran the Psychomanteums. And they might have, in this, you got to remember, this is a darkened hallway with very, very dimly lit. So you've got these faces on the walls that are sort of really spooky, right? And then sometimes they'd have like a misty haze or smoke. They might have incense burning. And the people would get to the very end, and then sometimes they would use, I guess they were the helpers of the priests and priestesses, I suppose. They'd have them on, what do you call them, these...
strings.
Well, they'd have them flying in the air with the help of strings. Just string them up, basically.
Yeah. The advent of the puppet.
Yeah, that sort of thing. So you've got this group of people who've come in, who've made the pilgrimage. They've actually started their own search to contact the dead from the time they probably walked out of the door of their own homes to do the pilgrimage. And this is the important part of pilgrimages. It's the whole process of priming yourself to have an experience when you get to your destination, right? So that's what the ancient Greeks did, and they'd go in there and they'd have all these visions of their ancestors. They'd receive communications, and basically even if it's for grief, because they miss the dead relatives, for example, they may go there for those sorts of purposes. But generally speaking, it was to communicate with the dead, to find information, for divination purposes.
And then they get to the end of the hall and someone would be having a lend of them.
Well, it could be sometimes, yeah, because if you think about it, it's very shamanic. It's a shamanic process.
Stringing people up by...
Well, no,
and
but
making them fly around.
Shamans have been known to use trickery as well. It's all very theatrical.
All right.
To
you?
prepare... No.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay. Baz is not convinced.
I can stand on my head.
To prepare people to have an experience. That's the whole point. And those people were well trained in helping the public to have those experiences. But that's where it originated from.
Was there a fee involved?
I don't know.
Oh.
I didn't live in ancient Greece at the time.
Oh, well, I just thought maybe that would come up.
Well, it could have been. It could have been. I don't know.
Gold coin donation, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so, but in modern times, Dr Raymond Moody, who is a near-death experience researcher, And he's actually the guy who wrote the book Life After Life in 1975 and coined the term NDE, or near-death experience. He was reading about this, and he thought this is a really good idea for grief counselling, because he's a psychologist. And so he set up a Psychomanteum in his own home. And he would have clients come in, and they would sit with him for an hour or so before they'd go into the Psychomanteum, and he would be preparing them to have that sort of experience where they would contact the dead. And he'd ask them, why do you want to contact the dead, and what do you want to know, and all those sorts of things. So they'd go through like a counselling session, then they'd go and sit in this darkened room. And so in a modern day Psychomanteum, it's always about a darkened room with usually a mirror or some sort of reflective surface, but it's completely dark except for a candle or a very dim light lit behind the person who's sitting in the room, and the mirror is tilted so at an angle so that they can look into the mirror and but not see their own reflection. Okay, so they're just looking into a darkened mirror, and there's just a little bit of light behind them. And anyway, when he started, he went into the Psychomanteum. He sat there for a couple of hours, and he didn't have any sort of experience until later, when he walked out and he went into his own living room, and he saw a vision or apparition of his deceased aunt sitting there in the living area in a chair. And he sat down and had a conversation with her for an hour and a half. Now, he described her as being like as flesh and blood as he was.
Well, what did he say at all?
I don't know. I haven't read the book. I haven't read the book, but anyone who wants to read the book, apparently it's in the book called Reunions that he's written. What happened then was he got up to leave, and then he turned around, and then she just disappeared. So somehow that process of going into his own Psychomanteum prepared him, or had some sort of catalyst for him to not see someone in the Psychomanteum but outside in ordinary daylight, which is really strange to begin with.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So there are other cases where there was another case where another psychologist, she was using it as well, and she used it for one of her clients who had a history of parental abuse by his father. So he went along to her to use the Psychomanteum because he wanted to understand his father's abuse and resolve his feelings about why he was abused, etc. But what happened was that during the process, he actually became his father when he sat in the Psychomanteum. So he took on his father's emotions, his perspective, and he said it was like seeing a movie play out in front of him by sitting in this darkened room looking into this mirror and having this strange experience. So there's a lot of interesting things that happen. I can see you have a possible question is birthing on your face.
Well, do you know, I mean, I'm no psychotherapist, and I'm just trying to, in my little head, just wrap my brain around how that could be therapy for someone who's experienced trauma from a parent who's been abusive.
Well, he'd obviously read about the use of a Psychomanteum, and he wanted to communicate with his dead father and ask him why he was treated the way he was, what was the purpose of that. But somehow he had the experience where he actually became his father. He stepped into his father's shoes, understood his father's limitations in his life at that time. And for him, I don't know whether he actually resolved the situation, but he felt he could move on from there because he could see it from a different perspective.
Well, I guess it's the ultimate empathy, really, when you're literally in someone else's shoes, or they're in your shoes.
Yeah, that. Whatever.
The other way around.
Whichever one.
Right.
Friday nights on BFM with Cosmic Girl and Sifu.
But Rosemary Guiley, who is a paranormal investigator, researcher, and author, she'd written over 60 books on the paranormal, and unfortunately died in 2019. But she actually taught classes on mirror gazing, which is what a Psychomanteum is, except you're doing it in a darkened room, etc. And what happened with her students was they would have their experiences went sort of beyond that. They would have hear footsteps. They would be touched. They would be hugged by people. There was a particular case where a woman had come into Rosemary's group, and Rosemary didn't know this, but she had come to communicate with her deceased shamanic mentor, and because she wanted to know something. And what happened during that particular thing was they did it in a group session, and Rosemary could hear drumming during that, right? And later on, the woman came up to Rosemary and said, "Oh, I heard drumming while that was going on." Turns out that the woman had come to make contact with her shamanic mentor. She was actually a Native American, and she had heard the drumming as well. So that there was corroborative testimony from her that heard by two people this particular drumming. There are other things that go on too, but in Rosemary's group, they had a lot of strange experiences. They also heard chanting and choir singing. They'd have manifestations of gods, goddesses, and angels in the room. So apparitions would appear in the room. So it goes beyond just going there for grief counselling, which is how Raymond Moody started. And the question is, how does it happen?
Well, it looks like from what you're saying, it's some sort of portal opens up, and so we're looking at some sort of trans-dimensional communication, maybe?
Yeah. And Rosemary actually said that the mirror is treated as a doorway or bridge to the afterlife. So somehow using this also triggers in individuals other paranormal experiences or paranormal events. So how that happens, I'm not really sure, but she's not the only one who suggests that perhaps this portal, that the human consciousness, given a tool and the right setting, can open a portal to other dimensions. But Rosemary also, she also used the Psychomanteums to be able to peer into past lives and to be able to read the Akashic records, taught people how to do that for themselves and to look into the future.
Okay.
So somehow that whole process seems to open up doorways for individuals to be able to have these other experiences. And like I was mentioning to you before, when people have strange experiences, it beyond the range of normal human experiences, it lays down new neural pathways in the brain, so which in turn changes their perspective, gives them another channel to other things that they perhaps didn't connect with before, and their awareness expands.
That's what Nostradamus used the Black Mirror to gain his experiences and prophecies. He saw moving pictures, apparently, of events in the future. Like he saw someone driving in the air with a face masked like a pig, and it turned out like that was in the World War I or II when they had the oxygen masks on the pilots.
Oh yes, that's right.
Yeah. There was numerous descriptions of what he visualised, which was totally unheard of in those days, of course. And he was able to see those visions using a black mirror and or a bowl of water on a tripod. Those same ideas, same principles.
And that, he used that, and it changed his awareness or consciousness, or went into an altered state of consciousness to be able to access that information. And I think a lot of people can do that. I know that shamans do it. Various people have said that, like Terence McKenna, he believed that the human mind could create a portal to another dimension where we can gain access to the true nature of reality.
Like the witch doctors and medicine men of ancient tribes in Africa and around the world, you hear of using things like bowls of water or tubs of water, the liver of animals, where they can, it's the right, viewing that is the right consistency and colour and shading and luminosity to be able to see these visions in action. So the wise men that knew how to go into this other dimension or use that as a tool for their journeying were able to see events and if their intention was, is there a sickness in the family, and they can get cures together and find out what medicines to give, and if there's danger in the future and all this sort of thing. So it's been used by native people for a very long time.
So maybe that visual stimulation can help to create these new pathways in the mind too. Yeah, so it's very interesting, isn't it?
I think if you make an altar at home, for example, and you hang the black mirror, we'll discuss probably in a minute how to actually make one for yourself. But if you hang that above the altar and make the ground, that little area, sacred, and use it for that purpose, when you go into that environment, it sets up an energy and creates the portal necessary for you to be able to successfully make these tools work for you.
So how do you make one? Have you made one, Bazza?
Yes, I've made a couple. But the best one is to get a photographic frame. You go to your charity store and buy an old photograph that's framed, and take the photograph out, and so you've got the glass. And if you can get the best way to do it is to use lamp black from a kerosene lamp, the old kerosene lights.
Oh, yeah.
If you turn the wick up high, you start to get that black sooty stuff coming out the top. Well, that's the material you need to blacken the back or one side of the glass, because that's absolutely non-light reflective material. And it's if you blacken the whole back of a piece of glass, put it back in the frame carefully so you don't scratch the soot off the back of the mirror, the back of the glass, and then reframe it again, and it's just this shiny surface of the glass is reflecting, the only thing that reflects. It doesn't reflect back beyond the lamp black. So if you use that in the darkened room, it's the flickering of a candle that you've put behind you that you'll start to see if you concentrate on an intention of something and soften your focus up a bit so that you're not looking directly at it, you're looking at a point between the mirror and yourself.
It's not like one of those bloody 3D pictures that
Exactly.
I could never get.
Yeah.
Like, can't you see the ship there, Sifu? And I'd be going, what?
Yeah.
I can't see them either.
What?
I can't get it.
That's exactly the example that I've used, is soften your focus. And if you can do that, if you've ever done that, you can get a 3D dimensional photo, an image out of a jumble of just random pictures. And it's the same principle. If you soften your focus up, and you'll start to see things moving, and the flickering of the flame, the candle in the background alters the light a little bit, and things will start to happen. You've got to do it. It's just a matter of practice, and when you get all this together, well, it may work for you, and you may get some pretty amazing results.
So DMT,
Yes.
Cosmic Girl, what's that about?
Well, DMT, dimethyltryptamine, I think it's called.
Say it really fast 3 times.
Dimethyltryptamine, dimethyltryptamine, dimethyltryptamine. So you can't fool me, can you?
Not with that word, anyway.
Anyway, it's said by many to be the portal to what we know as the afterlife. And dimethyltryptamine is actually a chemical that's released in the body naturally during near-death experiences, childbirth, and also when we dream. And actually,
So it's a brain release?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
right.
So all mammals have DMT and produce DMT, and some plants apparently. I didn't know that
Oh,
before.
right.
Yeah, I didn't know that. The interesting thing is that it's the most potent psychedelic known to man, and we're born with it in our system. The brain won't let a lot of toxins in, but it'll protect itself from that, but it will let DMT into the brain. So what does that mean for humanity? What does it mean that we have this, this chemical that's released into the brain that can create an altered state of consciousness? For what purpose? What is that? Are we supposed to have that connection? Is that how we have connection to spirit or to the afterlife or to other dimensions, maybe to ETs, I don't know, telepathic communication, I don't really know. But what is the purpose of that? Because we know that nature doesn't create these things in humans for no reason.
Friday nights on BFM with Cosmic Girl and Sifu.
But isn't it only released in 2 stages of life? Is it birth and near death?
Yes, but also in our dreams.
In dreams?
Yes, as well.
Okay. What type of dreams? Would it, is it...
That I'm not really sure. I'd have to go and have a look at Rick
that'd be
Strassman's
interesting.
work. I don't know if he actually...
Probably the nightmares,
probably
not nightmares,
nightmares,
not euphoric experiences.
Yeah, it could be that sort
something-
of thing. Yeah,
it's like eye stress.
Yeah.
Right.
And, it's an interesting question, one I hadn't asked myself before, why is it that we actually have that?
It might help in transferring your mind, like the ESP type situations, transfer. The Native Australian Aboriginals can send messages long distance to one another in tribal situations, and it may be the DMT that's activated there that can has something to do with the mind transference of knowledge.
Yeah, it's a big question.
Have they isolated that and people been taking it artificially?
Yes, they have.
In what sort of circumstances?
Just in research studies, for example, they'd have volunteers come in and take DMT because it's a potent psychedelic, and to see what the effects are. I think that's actually why Rick Strassman started his research in the beginning, was to study those effects of DMT on when it's given externally, not produced by the body. I can't quite remember the results of that research, but I know that he was quite impressed by what was happening because he didn't expect those results.
I think at the point of near-death experience or the point of death, DMT is released as a survival mechanism for the human mind,
Survival or transition?
Well,
Because when you're talking about childbirth, that's like a near-death experience in itself, really, isn't it? So they're both really this very, very akin to each other in terms of the types of experiences. But what's interesting, what I'm thinking about, is it's more that transitory stage or phase of life. You're moving out of one into the other, quite literally. So is there something about that chemical that eases that transition, or I guess not so much a catalyst, but maybe some sort of lubricant or something that helps it pass a lot easier?
I think it's created under duress. With childbirth, obviously women are under duress, and as people have near-death experiences, because near-death experiences, people don't actually die, but they are under duress. And maybe it may be a biological system that this chemical is released into our brain so that our mind can expand for survival reasons.
Or escape.
Yeah.
Suppress fear.
Yeah, and to be able to take in more data, because you have to take in data to be able to... Normally when you're fearful, that you get very focused, right, on the fear, on what the thing that's causing the fear, right? So the mind actually sort of narrows, but maybe under certain circumstances this may open it up.
Probably neutralise the adrenaline that's released when you're in fear.
Yeah, I don't know. But Rick Strassman did say, from his research, the most interesting results were that high doses of DMT seem to allow the consciousness of our volunteers to enter an out-of-body, freestanding, independent realm of existence, inhabited by beings of light who oftentimes were expecting the volunteers and with whom the volunteers interacted.
So they're expected.
Yeah. So he's inducing these experiences similar to near-death experiences through this external use of DMT.
Wow. Okay.
You see the brain ticking over here. Can you hear it, folks? Tick, 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 tick.
Didn't the Mayans have a special little rock shelter and a little stone bed that they used to go into and experience the near-death experience, like the shamans before they became shamans or something? I remember reading something about the Mayans used to use this deliberately going into a state of near-death experience to experience whatever they do there, like the transference of into a different dimension.
Well, I guess, when you talk about this whole fascination about being in commune with the other side, it's for a long, long time, since forever, I suppose, humans have been afraid of death.
Yeah.
So this is a really, like, having that possibility of being able to communicate, or having that realisation that the death's not the end would go a long way towards easing that fear, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think it helps people. The people that I know who believe that we don't. Life doesn't end with what we call death. That we actually go on and have another existence, or continue to have an infinite existence. They seem to handle life better. It seems to help them cope with stuff that happens in their life that they may not particularly choose to happen. I don't know. It helps them become a bit more philosophical about life too.
Can it have a negative effect?
Well, yeah, I think it can, because if you take it to the extreme, people may not try to do as well as they could because they think, I'll come back and do it next life, that sort of thing. So I think there can be detriment to that belief if it's extended too far.
Well, what about that whole, that whole mind-stretching thing? Like, you have these experiences. Everyone wants to have one of these experiences where they glimpse the other side, or they have this apparition manifest in a room beside them. But, wow. I put myself in that position, and I think, if that actually happened, how would I actually feel about that? How would that really affect me? That'd rock your world so badly.
Absolutely.
That you just go, wow, who am I? What am I doing? And I think it could take quite a bit of time to authentically process that. It wouldn't be something that would take, minutes or hours or days. It'd take weeks, months, years to actually process or come out and reveal that you've actually had that experience. So, in terms of how it would affect your psychology, and in terms of how it would affect your I don't know, like the whole meaning of your existence. That's a lot of processing.
Yeah, it'll shatter your reality.
It'll put you on another path, probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
A life-changing event.
Yeah, and that's what happens with a lot of people, for example, who have near-death experiences, and they go to what they think you call the other side. And these are professional, psychologists, medical doctors, neurosurgeons, all those sorts of people who've had those particular experiences, and it changes their worldview. But it doesn't happen overnight, like you say. It's a huge thing to process and integrate into your life, because it profoundly changes you at a fundamental level.
Because I guess, like, now, in this day and age, people can get online. There's readily available information, or practitioners that they could go to and speak to share their experiences of what's happened. It wouldn't have been that long ago where there would have been no one.
That's right.
And how would people actually cope with that?
Well, some of them might have turned to the church. I don't know what the reception would have been like, but it's only been since Raymond Moody first wrote his book, came out, that studies or research has been done on the near-death experience, and it took about 20 years for it to actually get some serious attention. So it wasn't until about the mid-90s that these professionals started to get on board.
At the Western society, we were introduced to actions of the natives have known for many, many thousands of years, probably.
Yeah.
They've been using it. It's only recently the Western society have been able to become aware of it and study it using our science today.
Yeah, and we're really behind the times in Western society, because if you think about it, the ancient Greeks, they had a culture where they would make this pilgrimage to go to a necromantian or psychomanteum and communicate with their ancestors. How did we lose that? it got lost all along the way, you know, in our history. It just disappeared. Can you imagine living in a society where that's acceptable, where that's the norm, where you make a pilgrimage to your local temple and have that experience? What, you know, you've really got to put yourself in those people's shoes. I need some guidance. I'm going to go to the temple. You know, I mean, it just blows my mind to think of what we've lost and with how people in the Western world have lost that connection with that other side or that whole philosophy of doing that.
Hence the introduction of the churches.
Yes,
unfortunately,
well,
it was seen as black magic, witches, witchcraft, and burnt at the stake and beheaded and all that sort of thing. And a lot of those, you know, when these were all public executions, and when people may have been witches or went to go to these places to have this paranormal type activity, accessing dead relatives, when they saw all this happening in public, then they just, I don't want to do that because I don't want to have my head chopped off type thing. So that was the start of the suppression of it.
Friday nights on BFM with Cosmic Girl and Sifu.
Well, Cosmic Girl, now I know where that expression smoke and mirrors comes from.
Exactly. And as you think of in our popular culture, how many children's fairy tales involve you know, mirrors like Snow White and the Queen's mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? And I think there was something called the Snow Queen. There's been a few others that I've read that aren't as well known, where they have these magic mirrors. And you know, in feng shui, I was told by someone who practiced that once that you shouldn't sleep with your mirror opposite your bed.
Yeah, facing you.
Yeah. And not to look into mirrors, you know, like where my grandmother used to have an old a dresser made out of rosewood, and she'd have the 3 mirrors. So the mirror in the middle of the dresser was fixed, and then on each side you could move it. Yeah. So you could look down it, and you could see this long corridor of many duplicates of yourself.
Oh yeah, like in the carnival.
Yeah,
sort of
that sort of thing. Well, you don't look down there. You know, like, that's not good. Yeah. So there's a lot of practices where mirrors are involved, and places that are haunted. You go into the place, you cover the mirror, right? Those sorts of things. So psychomanteums and mirrors. Harry Potter,
yes. The Mirror of Erised.
Yes.
So that's it's all in popular lore
and culture,
culture.
Absolutely.
But it's funny when you talk about like psychotropic experiences, and you look at how perception can change through in the internal space through chemicals. But it seems to me that Psychomanteum is using an actual physical tools to manipulate human perception.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Which means I definitely got to try me some of that.
Yeah.
We should do it, Basil. We should do some of these experiments and do it properly.
Yeah. Record it.
Yeah, and record it.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say was, let's flip this around a bit. Like, if there is a tool that we can use that can help us, our minds reach out to other dimensions, what about those who inhabit those other dimensions, whatever they are, energies, spirits, whatever, for them to reach out to us here in this reality? I wonder how that happens. I have read from some people that they have communicated with the deceased, who said it's very hard to. They have to take a lot of focus, a lot of energy, to be able to reach through into this particular reality. Now, I cannot confirm or deny that. I haven't had that experience, but I have had some mediums say that to me.
What about all the clutter too, like the noise? And I mean the ambient energy that we've got, you know, all the electromagnetic stuff surrounding us all the time. So wouldn't it be good to have an area which was sterile like that? You could probably, it'd probably enhance or create ideal, I guess, in air quotes, circumstances or conditions where you could do that.
I think if you look at each individual as similar to a radio, where you have to fine-tune the receiver. So if you could fine-tune your receiver, you might have a higher chance of making the contact, you know what I mean? So
Well, you probably fine-tune by practicing first.
Yeah, by practicing, but, like take away the electromagnetic, as you say, the electromagnetic influences around from the area of location, and sort of be able to concentrate your intention more directly, and you might be able to start some action happening, start up a bit of a portal or change the energy where a portal is created where you might be able to get results.
You think about all that activity, paranormal activity happening at 2 and 3 in the morning. It's no coincidence that it happens at that time of day. There's a lot of things are shut off, shut down. People are asleep. So you've got that even other types of consciousness, the human consciousness around that's creating that white noise. It's basically shut off or changed. So it really does create a more ideal environment for that sort of exchange of communication to occur.
Yeah, also, though, if you work with your body's rhythms, for example, like about 3 o'clock in the morning is a really good time to meditate because of your own bodily rhythms, your own brain rhythms.
Oh, yeah.
So we had hosted a remote viewer who'd been to Courtney Brown's Farside Institute, and he'd been trained there in remote viewing, and they were taught that 3 o'clock in the morning is the best time to actually do remote viewing. So because of that particular thing, because of that facet of the brain, so you can work with your own body's rhythms as well.
Back with more strange happenings and paranormal activity and tales on Bay FM.
Sifu here from Strange Encounters Down Under on 100.3 Bay FM, the heart, soul and spirit of the Bay. I have the lovely Beck with me at the moment. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm not too bad at all. Listen, we've had a lot of tragedy in this country recently, and what I'm referring to is the scope and the scale of the fires we've had all up and down the eastern seaboard of Australia. There are a lot of families out there that have suffered and have experienced a great deal of loss as a result of that tragic turn of events over the last few months. But what's really, really, I guess, refreshing is that we have heard some amazing stories of serendipity, coincidence and survival coming out of these stories. And Beck, listeners, has one of those stories to share with us this evening. So I guess we'll get into it. So where do you want to start?
Okay, well, first and foremost, we're very lucky to have my nan still surviving with us. It was just a set of circumstances that all came together, and it's worked out for the best. Long and short of it, Nan has lost her house. She's got a beloved cat named Archie that she thinks the world of. We lost Pop a while ago, so Archie is the world to her now, and cats have been forever, but she wouldn't leave the house when there was an evacuation. Yeah. It was said for Lake Conjola she had to leave. She wouldn't leave because there was no safety for the cat.
So where's that Conjola? Whereabouts? Is that in New South Wales?
Yeah, New South Wales, down near Bateman's Bay, that area where they've lost lots of houses.
Yeah, they got hit exceptionally hard, didn't they? Very, very tragic.
Yeah, extremely. So basically the evacuation was put out. Her neighbour tried to get her to leave, but due to there being lots of other dogs, etc., and they were all evacuating to the beach, she didn't think it would be safe for Archie to be there, so she was hoping that she could wait it out and be safe. It ended up that there was fire all around her. The house behind her had caught fire, and luckily for us, we had this amazing hero that was driving along, and there was a tree stump that had caught fire, and there was something about the fire. It was mesmerising for both of them, and it just happened that Nen was looking out the window at the same time that he's coming by. He's then seen my Nan and then gone up to the house and got her out. Now, if it hadn't have been for this particular fire and them both looking at it at the same time, we may not have her with us today.
Wow. So let's just break this down a little bit more, Beck, just for the listeners. So we've got a gentleman. Can we use his name, his Christian name?
Yeah, his name's AJ.
Okay, so we've got AJ who's essentially evacuating. So he's fleeing from the flames. So he's travelling down the road at a rate of knots. I'd imagine he'd be just passing, properties left, right and centre, yeah?
Yeah, I believe so. Well, his girlfriend lived in the area, which apparently was why he was there, and they're evacuating. And, yeah, he's trying to get out of the area and seen her.
All right, so you're saying that his attention was attracted by a particular tree stump that was alight and the way it was burning. Did he explain that in a little bit more detail to you?
I haven't had the chance to speak to him. It's been mum and what have you. But basically, from what Nan has said and them having the general conversation together, it was just the fire, the way it was sort of moving and the colours, they've both been drawn to it at the same time. So if she hadn't have been looking at that particular stump with the fire out the window at that time, he probably wouldn't have seen her, and the circumstances may be a hell of a lot different.
Okay, so Nan's in the house and she's looking out the window, a particular window, and there's several windows in the front of the house?
Yeah, there are. Yeah.
Okay, so there's several windows at the front of the house. She's looked out of this particular window, which is lined up, line of sight to AJ, who's fleeing at a rate of knots from the flames. And she's looking at the same fire, the same stump that's alight, that's burning a particular way, at the same time AJ is, and their eyes meet and he's going, oh my God, there's still someone left in this house.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay, so was there anything, did Nan say anything about why she was compelled to go to the window at that time? Because she didn't have to go to the window to look at anything, really, did she?
No, she didn't. She knew that the fire was close by, and it's been reported that the house behind already had the gutters and stuff alight. She obviously couldn't see that because it's above her eye level anyway, but because she had sort of been keeping a watch, she'd seen that stump alight and was going to call the fire department to let them know, because she was still in, obviously, the house where she should have evacuated. And
she put up a bit of a fight, didn't she? She didn't want to leave. It was all about Archie the cat.
Most definitely. Well, her neighbour actually thought that she was actually deceased. The house was definitely gone. She had like a garage shed that was further down the front of the property, which survived, but the house was completely gone. So when her neighbours gone back in the following day, the house is nowhere. So she's of the belief that she was deceased. And
she wasn't alone, because law enforcement actually presumed that for a little bit, didn't they?
Yeah, most definitely. Apparently it was on the radio and what have you, and it was my uncle who was going to her at the address where she'd retreated to, which happened to be AJ's family home. So he got out of the house and didn't know what to do, so he rang his mum and said, look, what do I do? Where do I take her? And she said, well, bring her home. So
right.
Yeah, she ended up, they took her in. It was great. They were lovely and very helpful and caring. But my other uncle, who was on his way to go and get her and take her back to his place, had heard it on the radio and actually called in and spoke to police. They were a little disbelieving initially, so they've actually gone to the house where Nan was to confirm she was alive and well, and yeah, the rest is history.
So they basically written her off and thought, oh, she couldn't have survived this.
Well, everyone is of that belief, because the neighbour was trying to get her out, and she was very adamant that she wasn't leaving because they couldn't confirm Archie's safety if they retreated to the beach with other dogs.
Well, Nan told the neighbours in no uncertain terms what they could do.
Most definitely she did. It's not her usual vocabulary, but yes, she certainly did.
Okay, so let's talk about Archie here for a second, which I find absolutely amazing, an absolutely amazing I guess, point of serendipity here. So let's turn back the clock a little bit to when AJ's actually come onto the property. Can you explain what happened?
Yeah, when he's actually come to the front door and Nan's opened it and he's explained, you've got to get out, he's helped get Archie into the cage, but he's asked, well, what's the cat's name? When she said Archie, it's then that he disclosed that he's got a nephew named Archie, and they sort of had a little bit of a chuckle about that. Got the cat in the cage, and then they've had to get down to the car. But it wasn't until the following week, when Nan was actually washing her clothes and stuff, that she realised how serious it was. Obviously, they're running. There were flames and stuff around. Her shirt and even her overcoat is all singed. They were running for their life. So it was so close to it being a totally different situation.
But there's something about that burning log in the front yard that was burning a particular way, mesmerising, in fact, at a particular time, to draw the attention of two people. Yep. So that their eyes met and they could actually engage and realise that somebody needed help.
Yeah, most definitely. We're lucky, and you know, we would say that it was Pop looking out for Nan, because why else? Nan is 81, and you know, if you're sort of looking at things, the evacuation, the call went out, get out of the area, and she was saying, no, I'm staying. At her age and the way things go, you would think, oh, maybe, okay, we've lost her. But we had someone looking out for her, and yeah.
So you think spirit was definitely at play here?
Most definitely. I'm of that belief, most definitely.
Because our show's tonight's all about communing with the dead, and we talk about scrying and using mirrors and various other tools to communicate with the other side, spirits, entities from other dimensions or other planes. So what's really interesting is fire has a very rich and ancient history in terms of scrying and in terms of divination. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. Not until we spoke. I had no idea that it was another form.
Yeah, very, very powerful. In fact, and we've heard from Strange Encounters as well. We've had people online, you know, suggesting to us that they've seen various shapes and forms and manifestations of the flames in the bushfires and the smoke patterns in the bushfires. And it makes you wonder, you know, like when human beings feel powerless, you know, when tragedy strikes and when natural disasters strike, we always look to the divine for a bit of guidance. And, you know, people have claimed to see everything from humanoid flame entities leaping from, you know, the fires out of the bush, and they've seen hand of God from the clouds and all sorts of things. But this story is nothing short of miraculous. But your family's no stranger to serendipity and coincidence, are you?
No, we're not. We lost my nephew quite a few years ago. A horrible set of circumstances, and prior to that point, we hadn't really given the spiritual side much of a chance. But after we lost him in the September. We went to a Charmaine Wilson show, you know, just to see how things are. He was 8 when we lost him, so there's a lot of questions that you have, you know, where do they go? Are they okay? All of those type of questions. And just in going to this particular show, he reached out. At the time, we couldn't really get much of a connection with my sister just due to her being so stressed, and obviously it was very fresh. But he reached out to my ex-husband and just clarified a few things to confirm that it was him. He's such a strong little spiritual soul. With most people that we've spoken to, there'll be different things going on, whether it be my life or my sister's, where he reaches out through other people, and it's kind of miraculous.
And actually what I love too, because I love music, obviously being a DJ, etc., but how spirit can work through music. And there's a couple of musical cues here that he's used to reach out and reassure family from time to time.
Yeah, he definitely does that. There's a few songs that resonate with myself and my sisters. Jesse's Girl is one of them, and Jesse was his name. You know, you can be having a really horrible day and there's things just getting on top of you, whether you're in the car or there's a radio nearby or something. It always happens that comes through. Now, it's not a song that you hear, it's not in the charts anymore or anything like that, so it does come through, and at the timing that it does. Songs also that come through are songs by Pink. He loved Pink when he was around, dancing around crazy. Now, those type of songs always come through for my sister. especially when she's down, you have those moments. It's funny how songs that resonate with your loved ones, he just knows when to do it. We can't explain how they do, but it happens.
Back with more strange happenings and paranormal activity and tales on Bay FM.
And what about a particularly rarer song that's very important to your partner and yourself that comes through from Jessie as well?
Yeah, there was an old song, Mr. Jones. It's not generally a song that you'd have as a thing with a partner, but it was something that meant stuff to us. And that song, there was one particular occasion, and it was not long after we had actually lost him. I'd left work in the car on the way home, and again, the radio station had gone a little bit funny. Then all of a sudden, Mr. Jones starts playing, and I was a crying mess. Not for a bad reason. It was all good, but that song comes through a fair bit when it's bad times.
Oh, it's lovely because I'm starting to see you get a little bit emotional now, but it's really joyous when spirit communicates with you like that, isn't it?
Most definitely. It's a happy cry.
It is.
Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's fine. And I guess, listeners, like when we talk about on the show tonight, and we're talking about ways and that you can communicate with spirit, and it's actually very, very, very possible. And these communications, subtle or otherwise, through coincidence or serendipity, they happen every day to ordinary people. And spirit can intervene in incredible, miraculous ways, can't they?
Oh, most definitely. Little odd things, you wake up in the middle of the night, there's no particular reason, you can't work out why, then all of a sudden there's a particular thing that pops into your head. And in all honesty, I think that's the way that they're also trying to communicate with us, making us realise, because we get so caught up in everyday life, it's so busy. They say that, the early hours of the morning, that's when they're able to make a connection as well with all the other different ways.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 in the morning. That's that magic hour, isn't it?
Most definitely.
And you know what I love about this too is, we tell these stories and we go, oh, it's quite incredulous, but they're very credible, down to earth people, and you're actually a law enforcement officer, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I am. Most people generally aren't very open to it, and I have to admit, many years ago, prior to us having lost my nephew, I was one of those very closed-minded people, but you know what, when you have a reason or an opportunity to see it and embrace it, it opens your life to so many other things. You realise there's a lot more to just being on Earth.
Right, okay. So you're able to open yourself up to the possibility of living life more wholeheartedly, yeah?
Most definitely.
Okay, so thank you very, very much for sharing this story. The listeners will find it absolutely fascinating and uplifting as well, given, the tragic circumstances that we're not used to, but we're being bombarded with on a daily basis around, what's going on in the country with the fires. And you get these little miracles that are happening in the midst of all this tragedy, and it is so inspiring and it is so uplifting, and it really does give you hope, doesn't it?
Most definitely.
So what's a message you'd like to share with the Strange Encounters listeners around this beautiful, absolutely beautiful, amazing spirit connection that you have with your nephew?
Just don't close your mind off to things. There will be little things that happen that you think don't mean much, but it's them trying to communicate. Keep your mind open. That's what we've learned. We were very close-minded previously. There's all these little signs that come through, and if you're not sure, ask. Speak to people. You'd be surprised. There are a lot more people that believe in this, but then they're not quite willing to come forward.
Yeah, it's funny. Not funny at all, but I get that quite a bit, and I guess this is how we're getting your story.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing.
No dramas.
Friday nights on Bay FM with Cosmic Girl and Sifu.
It's just funny, the whole mirror thing, the whole, law around, scrying and mirrors particularly, and even the seven years of bad luck if you break one.
Absolutely.
Well, they're ascribing that sort of superstition around, damaging something sacred, and it's like easier to see now where all that superstition comes from, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. From ancient Greece.
Ancient Greece.
My grandmother used to cover the mirror with a blanket if there was a lightning approaching their residence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
that
you
was-
thought it'd attract it.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's another... and close up curtains and,
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. It's an old suspicion.
Well, it may very well be true. I don't know how many lightning strikes have hit a mirror.
Yeah,
That's a question to ask.
yeah, exactly.
Stuff that works, and there seems to be a bit of a there seems to be a bit of a theme here. Simplicity is king. Like, how simple is that to set up? And it's like what Eric was talking about in terms of ritual practice, is there shouldn't be much in a magical space that a practitioner can't accomplish with a glass of water and a white candle, really, because it's all about your intent. And it's all about creating a space, a sacred space, or setting it up with that emotive and that energetic connection that is conducive to whatever it is you want to do. So I guess it's like when you're talking about, the ancients going on their pilgrimage, and when you set this sort of stuff up in your house, in your own space, you're actually doing that yourself.
That's
You're
right.
going through ritual.
Yep.
Washing dishes could be ritual. So it's one of those things. So you go in and you source what you need and you set it up the right way, and then you put it in terms of the Psychomanteum practice as well. One of the questions that I was going to ask you, when you're trying to get your internal space right to be as conducive to that experience as possible, is there a dietary thing? Is there a cleansing thing that you do? Do you eat well for a few days prior to that? Is there something just to prepare your body so that you're not clouded? So clean eating, any of that sort of thing, so you're getting your internal environment right prior to connecting to that.
I think with an attitude of a very sharp, natural mind, no alcohol prior to it or anything that's mind-altering, stay well away from that, and try and use a sharp, keen, natural mind would be what I'd suggest anyway.
Do you know?
Well, the ancient Greeks would disagree with you, because in their rituals,
they were pissed.
they consumed a meal of
Goddamn.
broad beans, pork, barley
Greeks,
bread,
man.
oysters, and a narcotic compound.
There you go. See, they're the Greeks, and nothing much has changed. But look, what I'm thinking in my head is like, when you start talking about these experiences, you put yourself in that space and you go, I really want to contact this person who's near and dear to me that's passed. So to me, in terms of ritual magic then, and shifting my perception and focus, I'd be doing things like keepsakes, something special, a letter that was written to me, or a special photograph of us together, or an experience, and I'd set that up in my space, in the Psychomanteum space as well, so I could meditate on that and get my head into a state where I'm recalling quite intimately what it was to be in their presence, what it felt like to be in their presence, and try and replicate that energy prior to going into that gazing experience. Would that be something that you'd agree with? That something you could do?
I think you could do that, but it depends why you're using it. What if you don't want to contact the dead? What if you, like Nostradamus, he was doing that and receiving prophetic visions? He was going into this meditative state. From what some of the things I've read from some of his journals, that he'd do that pretty much every night. He'd retire into his special room and have these experiences, and that's how he got the quatrains that he wrote down.
Well, what was his setup? Like, how did he prepare himself? Was his mindset, was it a as a seer? Did he set up his ritual so that, reveal yourself to me, future reveal yourself to me? Was it a mantra that he recited? Was there something that he did to put himself into that space where he would be more receptive to glimpsing the future? Because he could have gone the other way.
He was a genius.
But did he go backwards as well
In time?
into the past?
I don't know.
I don't
We hear
think
with
so.
Nostradamus in the future.
There's
but
a lot of things we don't know about Nostradamus. You know, in regard to preparation, all I've read is that he would just retire after a meal, an
He was a
evening meal.
doctor.
He was an alchemist, wasn't he, as well?
As
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Well,
And a
he was at the
philosopher,
time of the
an
Black.
astrologer.
Yeah, the whole works.
He was the time at the Black Plague, and he went and helped people with the Black Plague, and he never got sick with the Black Plague. So he was able to help them because of his. I think he had a very strong mind and a very super strong mind, you know, and he was able to project these thoughts and energies into the future and get results, you know. Like he was a superhuman, you know, in a lot of ways.
Well, he must have had a strong constitution to be able to survive the plague
Yeah.
as
yeah,
well.
That's right.
Multivitamins.
It could have been, who knows? Might have been all those sacrificed sheep that some of them did.
But he might have got that information. How can I, you know, avoid getting the plague? And he might have got the cure from the same principles as
We don't know.
He's got his predictions from.
But the thing is, though, why quatrains as well? And there's been the debate. Why have it that if you have a message that has travelled eons of time, why has it now become wrapped in a puzzle?
Well, at that time they were burning witches at the stake, and he had to camouflage what he was getting in astrology any way he could. As a clever person, he put them into these riddles, and it's more or less throwing them up in the air and randomly putting them together so that they didn't one lead onto the other. So he was living in a time where he would be his life was in danger if he was caught by the authorities at the time making these predictions. So that's why they're in quatrains.
Right. Okay. I just think about it as well. Like I'm sitting here looking into the reflection of that glass, and there's listeners out there. I'm bloody sure that that's the case, where you'd be on a train and you'd go past and you'd see a reflection and you'd think you'd see someone looking back at you. Or we've all had that. Have you had that?
Yeah.
Because I know I have. Like you walk past a mirror or a shiny, you know, bit of tile in your bathroom or whatever, and you think there's someone there, and then you do the double take and it's not there anymore. So is that could be the beginnings of that sort of process, you know? And it's usually like, you know, when you are, and this is the other thing too, and this is why I say trains, because what do you do when you're on a train? You switch off. You know, you get that rhythmic, you know, sound of the train going on the tracks, and you've got that rhythm, and, and it's sort of like you're going like almost like a trance, right? And then you go, what's that? You see that, and it happens, and even when plodding around your house doing housework, we're talking about washing dishes before, going into a trance, like say vacuuming even. That sort of drone, and then you go past a shiny surface, and you catch yourself, and you go, "What was that?" And that's when you start to see things out of the corner of your eye.
So really, you're just in an altered state of consciousness.
Yeah.
And you think you're stationary and the land is flying past you at 60 kilometres an hour or something, you know.
Yeah. So really, the moral of the story is even the most mundane can become extraordinary, and these are not practices that require a lot of. I guess they're not very complex, are they? It's stuff that you could pretty much put together within a couple of hours, really, and then start staging your space, so it's more conducive to that.
And at a pinch, people can use their, you know, big screen TVs, and just make sure everything is dark in the room. Have just a lighted candle behind them. Make sure they can't see their own reflections in the TV when it's not on.
And if it's not on, it's not on.
See what happens.
It's like that whole come over for Netflix and chill without the Netflix. So come out.
Come out for a chill.
Come out
Sit there staring at the TV.
Yes.
What are you watching?
Come over to Scrying and chill. It doesn't really have the same sort of.
I'm just checking on what's going to happen tomorrow.
That's it. It may have a different connotation altogether right now.
A good experiment would be if you could set it all up so you've got your Psychomanteum all worked out, and you've had a bit of experiment, you get used to it, and then try to project your mind into the future, a future event that's a world-changing event, and record it. If you do get some knowledge or some experience or whatever, and seal it in an envelope and date it, and see if it does come true. And that could be evidence that you actually did it.
Maybe it's not the looking for it, though. Maybe it's that somehow allowing these experiences to occur, I guess, by changing our perception, allows more of them to occur.
Yeah, you
Yes.
recognise
You're
them.
giving them permission.
Not just recognising them, but giving permission to the unseen realms for more of it to come into your
Yeah.
life.
But maybe they do, right? Maybe, like, what Cosmic Girl was talking about before, that what about those critters on the other side that are wanting to communicate with us?
Yeah.
It's a two-way street. So maybe it is something as simple as giving them permission. You know, welcoming that into your life. But you've got to be careful, because really, what do we know? What do we know what we're welcoming in and what
That's
we're not?
right. We don't know what we don't
know.
know.
We don't know what we don't
We
know.
don't know who we don't know.
Yeah, well, that's that's the same everywhere. It's just a matter of trust and gut feeling, as you say, and keeping the intent pure as you can, more or less, and just see what happens.
Okay, so let's sum up this so we can optimise this whole Psychomanteum thing. So, darkened room,
Yes.
mirror, and all you need is basically a comfy chair,
Yep.
mirror.
Mirror that doesn't show your reflection. You don't see your reflection in it.
So it's just got to be off kilt, like off,
so it can be
tilt.
tilted down off the wall, or if you've got it on a table, it needs
Yep.
to be tilted so you don't see your own reflection.
Yes, that's the thing. And a backlit with a candle somewhere
Yep.
in the back, doesn't
Yep.
matter really where
Yep.
it is.
Yep.
As no light whatsoever except for that.
Yep.
And we talked about ideal times in terms of your natural rhythm that's
Mm-hmm.
conducive to that sort of psychic experience. And that's around that
That 3 o'clock in the morning time.
2 or
yep.
3 a.m. in the morning, so we can do that.
Or when the kids go to bed and you have your quiet time.
I'd be crashing at that time if
Yes.
I had
Well,
kids
that
that
might be
age.
10 o'clock.
Yeah, and we can do other things. So it's all about that staging and the creating a sacred space and going through your own ritual and your own pilgrimage as well.
Yeah.
So doing that in your own way, in your own space, so that it becomes sacred, and then just really opening your mind, giving it a go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever
Asking-
helps you connect.
Yeah, and asking the questions like, "I've got a problem with this. Can someone give me some insights into it?" You don't even have to contact the dead. You can just ask the spirits,
Guides.
basically.
Well, this is something that I read today somewhere about guides and about identification of your guides, and there's a school of thought that says, look, just give your guide a face or a form. Doesn't have to be the correct one. Just start the dialogue. So start
exactly
talking,
right.
start talking, and communicating, and then it'll change itself to the correct one over time.
Yeah.
So it's the same sort of thing, isn't it?
I agree with that. Yeah.
But as soon as you start the process. So it's just a question of having the confidence and the faith and the trust to actually start. I guess that's what Basil was talking about
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
You got to have a bit of faith, hey?
And you've got to open the door,
Yeah.
but in the right way to the right thing, and that's where your intention comes in.
Yeah. What do you want to do it for?
That's what you do at dowsing. You don't just get the dowsing rods and hold them in your hand and hope for the best. You've got to ask questions. You've got to activate it by asking various questions. Same principle.
Because I guess you're transferring some power into it as well when you actually believe that these things can do certain things. You're actually, transmitting that sort of power into them anyway. And it's the same with the guides when you're actually talking, like physically, audibly talking, not just in your head. I think it has a different frequency,
Yeah.
when you're actually audibly communicating to your guides.
Yeah, well, that's the power of the spoken word.
Yeah.
That brings things into manifestation, into this reality.
Good. So that might be something that we would do then, listeners, when we're sort of setting up our own space for the Psychomanteum, is setting our intent in that space and doing that in an audible way, so that you've got that frequency, that frequency change and that shift. So that all helps.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
definitely, yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I know there'll be a few listeners out there right now that would be itching to go out and have a crack at it. And we welcome you to call us or to get on the page and let us know how you actually went. If you
Love
had
to
the
hear
courage
it.
to do it, it'd be interesting to hear about listeners and what their experience is. Who did you contact? Why did you want to contact them? What actually happened? Or maybe it was the fact that you actually wanted to contact someone and someone else popped in. And what's that about, right?
Yeah, exactly, because not always the person that they want to communicate with actually communicates. It could be someone else completely who they were not expecting. That's the other strange thing that happens.
Or if they want a bit more information of how to set it all up and to make a mirror, it's not actually a mirror. Like, you can use a mirror. Like, there's other things. If you want a little bit more information, send us a message and we'll help you get it together.
How can we do that, Cosmic Girl?
Well, they can call us.
Yes, they can call us on 3821 0022. That's 3821 0022 at Bay FM, or they can hit us up on Strange Encounters Down Under Facebook page.
Exactly, and our phone number is on there too, I believe. I'm sure it is. I've put it there.
Oh, right. Well, there you go.
Well, what
You just have to go to the About. It's your number. You just have to go into the About part of the page to find that number. And anyone out there who's also had a UFO sighting, just to not let that slip by, they can also contact us at UFO Research Queensland on 33761780.
And we've got a special shout out to a lovely young lady who is following us avidly.
Yes, that's
online.
Kimberly.
Yes, Kimberly,
hi,
how are
Kimberly.
you? Hope
Hi,
you're
Kimberly.
listening.
Yep, hope you stayed awake for the show.
And remembered it wasn't Saturday today. So.
We had to proper open our eyelids.
Ordinary people all around Australia are having strange and unexplainable encounters. Join BFM's Cosmic Girl and Sifu each Friday night at 10 p.m. as they explore the fascinating world of paranormal and tales of strange encounters. Extraterrestrials, ghosts, monsters, myths and magic. Bay FM 10 p.m. Fridays, the heart and soul of the Bay. Oh, and the spirit along the Redlands coast and beyond.